Ohio Revised Code Section 12122. I hereby call the March 9, 2022 meeting of the Bexley Board of Education to order. Kyle, would you call the roll for us, please?
Dr. Baker. Here. Dr. Jade. Here. Ms. Powers.
Here.
Ms. Mitchell.
Here.
Ms. Pickle.
Here.
Thank you. We are going to have public participation available tonight as we work to ensure that our public participation section is responsive to our community's needs as well as those of the boards to conduct business in an orderly and efficient manner. We ask that those wishing to speak at public comment sign up at the podium at the beginning of the meeting. Is there anybody who's here to speak who hasn't had a chance to sign up yet? So Kyle, would you pull the sheet for us? Thank you. Thank you so much. And then we start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Fine, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm sorry.
Approve the minutes.
Oh, did I miss something? Sorry. I'm so excited to do the awards and recognition. The minutes of our February meeting have already been provided to the board members. Does anybody have any comments or changes to the minutes? There being none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. This is a vote on approving the minutes. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same? Thank you. That motion carries. Now let's do awards. and
Yeah.
recognition.
Approval of agenda, I'm sorry.
Wow. Well, okay.
We
I just have it in a
do that.
different order on
Yeah.
my sheet here.
Did it print differently?
No, I must have made a mistake.
Oh.
Anybody have any adjustments to our agenda this evening? No? May I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approval of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Okay, now.
Okay, yeah. Gwen, if you would come up to the podium for us, and you're welcome to have your family join you. But we have, yeah, come on up. It's an honor to have Gwendolyn Canfield with us. She won 1 gold and 1 silver key in the 2022 Scholastic Art Key Awards, which is a national competitive contest and exhibition. You can see the work up on the screen. Very impressive. Bexley High School art instructor Mabi Ponce de Leon is also in attendance and shared with me that Gwen is a scholar artist who is also enrolled in drawing and AP art and design. You have created lots of masterpieces, one of them being a children's book through your AP coursework. You have explored and mastered acrylic paint, graphite, and charcoal, inks, and mixed media. You've produced a master painting of a Van Gogh self-portrait using color, line, and brushstroke to develop form. You've advanced, I believe, to this weekend to the States in the 2022 Ohio Youth Governor's Exhibition with 2 of your works, Jeremiah Clinton, which is an acrylic painting, and Triplets, which is an ink drawing. Is that correct? And one of my favorite things that Mabi shares is, above all else, Gwen is a friend to all. So not only are you an amazing artist, but you are an amazing human being, and we're really proud of you. We want to congratulate you on an impressive accomplishment. Sounds like you have such a bright future ahead. If you want to take a second to introduce who you've brought with us and anything else about your artwork, now would be the time. Tell us who's with you.
Oh, yeah, this is my parents.
Well, thank you. And again, congratulations. Best of luck this weekend. We're going to take a picture with the board if that's okay. Great. Thank you. We'll take it with Victoria and Alicia.
Everybody should be part of the picture.
Yeah, let's bring the whole board. Come on.
We gotta take a picture.
Freshman.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Here we go.
I hope that wasn't open.
No.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Great.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. We're going to move to the next slide. We've got another recognition we'd like to take care of. Liam Avaluto is quite an impressive artist as well. You want to come up to the podium? So Liam is a senior tenor saxophone player who has been playing saxophone for 9 years. And if you've ever heard Liam play, that sounds crazy to me. It sounds like you've been playing for many more because you are quite impressive. He recently auditioned for the All-State Jazz Band his junior year for acceptance into the band your senior year. Hundreds apply and less than 3 are selected for each instrument. Liam performed in February at the Ohio Music Education Association during the snowstorm. I was supposed to be there, couldn't get there. I think you went earlier in the week. And that is quite an honor. Additionally, Liam has been a member of the top Columbus Youth Jazz Ensemble in Columbus, Ohio for several years, and he has performed for several OMEA solo and ensemble contests. He has received top superior ratings at these events. He will be studying jazz performance next year at a top university jazz program yet to be released. And under his leadership, he has mentored and tutored the saxophone section in multiple classes, including concert and jazz bands. I first heard Liam perform, I believe, at one of the school functions at, I believe, Hispanic Heritage Month, and was blown away by your ability. Congratulations, Liam. We are super proud of you. You are quite an artist. And if you would take a moment to introduce who you have brought with us and anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, this is my mom, Susan, and I just look forward to my future career.
Love it. Give it up. Thank you. Mom, did I cut you off?
No, I was just going to say, and we just got notification that he's received almost a free ride to the University of Louisville to study saxophone.
That's great. Well, congratulations. Go Cardinals.
That's a great school to study music. too.
Yeah.
Good job.
It's amazing. So we'll take a picture with the board. Congrats.
What? I was on this side last time.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Cooper also says.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're gonna introduce Cooper next month. Cool. So thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Did he win also?
Yeah, so
Really
we
talented
have,
musicians, jazz
as you saw
ensemble.
up on the screen, Luke Cariello couldn't be here this evening. And then we've got Cooper Dennison, who we're gonna honor next month.
Wonderful.
Check the actual agenda instead of my notes. Board reports. So last month, I'm going to give a slightly longer board report than I like to, and it's just because there's been a lot of activity in the legislature, and I want to give everybody a chance to just hear what's going on some of the bills that are most important to our schools. Last month, I reported on House Bill 51 that contains a provision that allows a public body, including a Board of Education, to temporarily meet remotely. It also permits individual board members to attend and vote remotely at an otherwise in-person meeting. The bill was signed by Governor DeWine into law in February, and it became effective immediately, but it expires by its own terms on June 30th, 2022. If we want to take advantage of that, we actually have to revise our policies a little bit. So we may need to do that in the next few days, just or in the next, talk about it and then bring it to the board. So we'll take a look at that. I have an update on House Bill 327 relating to the teaching or promotion of certain so-called divisive or divisive concepts. We've talked about that in several board meetings. On February 16, the State and Local Governance Committee of the House, which is the committee that's looking at this bill, accepted a substitute version of House Bill 327. That substitute version makes a number of changes to the bill. The bill is now focused on a prohibition against compelling any individual, such as a student, to affirm, adopt, adhere to, profess, or promote certain specific concepts in violation of Title 4 and 6 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And so now that piece of legislation is directly linked to not violating the Civil Rights Act. Substitute bill also prohibits school districts from compelling or requiring a teacher to discuss current events or widely debated and currently controversial issues of public policy or social affairs.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It prohibits school districts from compelling or requiring a teacher to discuss, what the bill describes as divisive, or I think they've quit using that word, widely debated and currently controversial issues of public policy or social affairs. So generally, I would say that the bill is moving, it's sort of pulling away a little bit from what it used to be. It's still very vague and concerning, but there's been a lot of discussion, outcry against the bill. And I think these are attempts to make it more palatable. The substitute bill also contains revision as to which concepts are or are not prohibited. It removes the non-compliance funding penalties, and it requires the state board to amend the professional code of conduct for educators. It also now, for the first time, has specific requirements of boards of education. If it is passed in its current form, the bill would require the school board to annually adopt a policy approving a list of balanced partisan and nonpartisan activities that are consistent with the bill's code of conduct provisions and that do not promote one opportunity over another. And the bill would permit a school district, school, or teacher to require a student to participate in a political campaign, lobbying effort, or practicum involving social or public policy, provided that the student selects from the school board approved list of opportunities. So this is another movement to try to solve some of the problems that have been brought up about this bill by, it used to just say students can't get a grade for participating in any public, social activity. And in response to that now, in response to people objecting to that, they're now saying that the school board needs to say, here's a bunch of stuff that would be okay. And we would have to pass that every year. And it would have that list of things as described in the new version of the bill would have to be within the parameters of what the bill requires, but then students and teachers could include things that were included in that list or in the description of that list to participate. So they're trying to do better than where they were before.
Ms. Powers, may I ask just briefly? So current events are what they are. So a Board of Education adopting a list of events or a list of approved activities
balanced partisan and nonpartisan activities.
Well,
So-
generally speaking, though, we as a district stay away from specifically political leaning activities. However, social activities that might have some sort of social impact, like for example, a study of the civil rights movement and the civil rights era. I'm trying to understand the arguments around the bill in particular, saying a balance of partisan
Right.
versus, what
So
was the other word?
nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan.
So the way I'm understanding this, and this has come out, there hasn't been an opportunity for there to be proponent testimony
was wondering
or
if there
opponent
was.
testimony since this revised version came out. I think it is a real effort to move it to something that can be lived with. It's way too soon for our district to know, because it's way too soon, because this bill is still just a bill. And, I think there's a ways to go. I hope, but my sense of what the board would need to do is find out from our teaching staff what it is that they
I see from
work
the
with their
curriculum.
students to do,
Mm.
and then put that on the list and just go forward. As you know, we already have a policy that governs how our teachers are required to teach controversial issues.
Right.
And this is just me speaking, and it's just my commentary. The way the bill is currently drafted, I believe our teachers will be able to continue to do that.
As the policy is written currently.
I will say the bill continues to be written in a confusing way, and it's my personal opinion that is, and it's the opinion of a lot of other people too, that that's a problem, but that problem might persist because it does lend itself to creating anxiety around it. And so there's been a lot of discussion that this bill should be made less confusing, but it still has a lot of vague areas, and you're pointing some
Yeah, I
of them
think
out.
a year ago when we talked about it, it was really just like, what's the problem they're trying to solve in
Right.
the first place? And it sounds like they haven't fully identified that yet.
Did they give a couple of examples of these so-called balanced topics yet?
No.
Vague on purpose.
They didn't mention anything with gender or orientation, obviously.
No, and so this bill is really some people refer to it as the anti-critical race theory bill. There are two bills, actually, 322 and 327. This is the one that gets all the adjustment, and it seems to be the one that's kind of going forward. Some of these amendments are pulling things out of what was 322 and putting them into 327. This bill, this is the fourth version of it. But I think there's still work to be done, and I don't think they're going to give us examples. But they probably, they're still tinkering around with what's okay and what's not okay.
Right.
But again, it's now tied to the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, I've been watching some of the news in Florida and other places too about some development. So
Right. So I'll continue to watch this bill. I get updates about it, and I look to see what's going on all the time. So I'll continue to report on it. And there isn't an opportunity yet for us to, with respect to this version, there may come a time when there is an opportunity for us to do, to go downtown. Many of our students did that when there was in October, September, maybe an opportunity for people to write something or present testimony, opponent testimony or proponent testimony. They've done those at different times. So I'll continue to watch for that as well.
Because I think in the fall, they weren't hearing any testimony.
They were, what I heard from a conversation that I had with our Congresswoman, they were sort of surprised at the amount of opposition. And so
I particularly do not like the disciplinary action towards educators.
Right, and so they've taken away, as I understand it, what's gone from the current version of the bill that was there before is a financial problem. Now what's there is the threat against the teacher. And as I recall it, the teacher could, the first offense would be like a warning. The second offense would be a suspension of license for a short period of time. And the third one, I think this is new in the bill, the third offense would be a suspension of license for a year.
Yeah.
And I also think the bill says that if you teach like 3 classes and you teach the same material in each of the 3 classes, then it's 3 offenses. Yeah. So,
Victoria?
yeah.
Also, in your next report next month, there's also talk about how this would impact AP designated courses.
Right.
So if that's brought up through some of your conversations with the state association, just probably mention that might be helpful too, because it's just being reported in news articles.
Yep.
But that would have a big impact as well.
Right. I appreciate that. I will do that. Thank you. Quick update on House Bill 290, often called the backpack bill. On February 15th, the House Finance Committee held sponsor testimony on that bill, which would establish the backpack scholarship program. Under that program, K through 8 students would be eligible for $5,500, and high school students, 9 through 12 grade students, would be eligible for $7,500 to use for private school tuition or other allowable expenses. And there are several. A substitute version of the bill was introduced, but the committee did not vote on whether to accept the substitute bill, and I will continue to watch that. Finally, I have an update on House Bill 126. Kyle has reported to us periodically on this bill. In its original form, the bill placed certain limitations on the process for political subdivisions, including a school district, to contest the value of properties not owned by the district for property tax purposes. When the Senate took up the bill, it rewrote the bill to eliminate the ability of entities such as a school district from filing a property tax challenge complaint. The Ohio House considered the Senate's amendments to that bill last week and voted 0-90 to not concur with the Senate's changes. So there was a lot of lobbying that went on, and treasurers and others made their voices heard, and the House said, okay, we're not going to do that. So now that bill goes back to the Senate. The Senate, there are 3 possible outcomes, the most likely of which is that the Senate will insist on its changes, and that will send the bill into a conference committee to work out the differences so that the House and the Senate would work out their differences or try to work out their differences. So I will stop there. Can I answer any other questions about that? Thank you. As we move into the other reports, I just want to make a comment about how we do our reports. Some of us have different ways of learning, and some of us have different ways of speaking or presenting. At this time, Jonathan Baker has let me know that he's more comfortable using slides to support his board reports, and he's going to do that tonight. His slides are his own. All of our reports have equal import, whether they're on a PowerPoint or simply presented orally. I use notes. So just so that we all kind of are on the same page about that. So Alicia, turning it to you.
Thank you. So I have my quick notes here for the Bexley Education Foundation. BEF is currently in the process of a rebranding effort, going out, holding a few focused groups amongst the community, just so that we can better understand what the community understands about who and what BEF is and what we do, and how we support our schools. And that effort is being led by a Bexley community member, a very talented individual, Mr. Brad Dresbach. So we're really excited to have that work be able to help us rebrand the foundation to something that people can identify who and what the BEF does. Bravo tickets. Bravo is still scheduled for March 26th. It's the largest fundraiser for the year for BEF, and it's a really exciting time. And it's a lot of buzz right now just to be able to have this opportunity to gather again. So it's going to be a really exciting time. The tickets are on sale. They went on sale as of March 1st. They're $100. And then sponsorships, many of you have probably received in the mail opportunity to sponsor at different sponsorship levels. And so we encourage you, if you have a business that wants to do some sort of civic efforts, that's a great way to get involved and support the BEF. It is never goes unnoticed to remind our community how the BEF stepped up and helped us fund our one-to-one project. Had they not done that, we would have been in a world of hurt, like many, many other districts. And so anything that we can do to help those efforts, it's great. The silent auction is going really well for Bravo right now, but they are still in need of a few things. OSU tickets, if anybody has a connection. Donation of Columbus Crew or Clippers for our sports baskets. And then I have a couple of bottles of wine to donate. I believe they still needed some bottles of wine. So if there's some bottles, and not the junky kind that you don't like to drink, but if you have a bottle of wine you could donate, that would be great. Let me know. I'd be more than happy to pick it up and drop it off to Pam Glasgow. We had a finance committee meeting, and I was in the thick of my cootie fest and fell asleep through my Zoom connection. So I apologize. I do not have that report. I was really, really ill, and these guys were probably calling my name and wondering what happened. And I was deep in slumber. So I apologize for that. But Jonathan's going to report out on the finance committee for us. And then the only other thing I want to just remind our board that our cheerleading team, as you know, took home another round of state titles, and super excited for that. As a former cheer mom and cheerleader, it's always exciting to see. And this year, when we had a number of Bexley students recognized for all district placement of accomplishments in their sports for winter sports, cheer was for the first time recognized at the Ohio Athletic Association event or for the MSL event. And it was a little interesting to hear them introduce it. I'm going to send some feedback to them about not calling cheer a sport, because that's absolutely false. But it was great to see our students up there, and our MSL cheerleader of the year, and our cheer coach was recognized as the coach of the year. It was really great to see that. So when you guys go to a game, just know that they're usually at several games throughout the season, not just the basketball or football, whatever the sport is. They're typically trying to show their face in their ambassadorship of the district. So that's all I have for today.
Alicia, let me ask you a quick question back on the BEF. So Bravo is the 26th, and you can, is it right that you can attend remotely as well as in the room?
Yes, you can. I can actually forward you guys. Let me just make a note to do that, that information on the virtual attendance. Thank you.
Yeah, because I was thinking I couldn't go, but I can probably attend virtually.
Yes,
Because I'll be away that
I'll
day.
get that link. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Alicia?
So if cheer is not a sport, or was not considered a sport, they call it an activity?
So under Ohio Athletic Association, it's officially considered a club sport, but
Club sport.
they can letter. And I would argue if they ever came to at least one of our practices, they probably wouldn't say that. So yeah, that's an education of the sport across the
Mhm.
world. And it's going to take some time, but
Well, we have a nice big banner
We
in our
do.
athletic, in our
Yeah, quite a few.
gymnasium with the years that we're state champions. So keep adding those numbers up there.
they
with
definitely.
all the other sports.
They definitely have earned they earned the opportunity to be recognized along with other athletes in our gymnasium, and I'm really, really proud that they took home the title for building, which is the
Tumbling.
stunting and tumbling, and then also game day, which is so much fun to watch.
Yeah,
So
if you've never been, I went to my first
did you?
state
That's right.
championship,
They
and
told
it
me to let
was-
you know. Thank you.
Yeah, it
They
was-
really appreciated that.
it's quite an experience. Our team, coaches, just so exciting to watch, but just the whole process.
Atmosphere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So really impressed.
That's awesome. All right, thanks so much,
Mhm.
Alicia. Jonathan, you're up.
All right, thanks. Let's go ahead. That works. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the athletic board. And so two policies in particular. The first one was the substance abuse policy. And Harley, Dr. Williams chairs that committee. And so what he wants to do is look at the wording and the timing and kind of make it current. And so he wants to make sure that he's working in consultation with Marcellus Braxton to update the policy, not just from the DEIJ standpoint, but from an overall restorative justice lens. So not a punitive perspective, I guess you could say. So we had some good conversation about whether it should be a 10% of games missed and some details there. But the whole point is that it should be an impact, but not too excessive, right? And so there's that conversation. And then there's more conversation about first offenses and whether there should be some kind of weighting there. And there's an example that I put about someone being a bystander versus a distributor. Next topic was the academic integrity piece. And I found this kind of curious as an educator myself, that athletics will be involved in the conversation on academic integrity. So the idea is that we want students to feel it in some kind of way. Like, so if you have an infraction in the classroom, you should feel it somewhere else too, right? Where I guess it hurts you, I guess you could say. So one idea is that I want to reinforce the sanction. So they worked in consultation with seeing what goes on at Ohio State or at Capitol. We don't typically put people on probation for, cheating or something like that. So just kind of get into more context about what other universities do. That's so Dr. Williams is doing an awesome job there. Next one will be the committee that Alicia was talking about. We missed her and we tried to call her a couple of times, but we need you to get your help, your sleep and your rest so you can come back ready to go. So we thank you for that. So the big key thing there is my first time coming to one of these meetings, and a lot of what's the word that Harley used? Veterans or some a sea of knowledge on that committee. Just like a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom on that committee. That's what you said, right? On that council, right? So I felt like I was a newbie with all this wisdom on the Zoom there. But the levy passed in 2019, and the question was, should we have another levy come up in 2023 or 2022? Excuse me. But that was the plan back then, like maybe 2022. But overall, Mr. Smith did a great job of crunching numbers and said that, hey, if we do a levy coming up pretty soon, it'll be under 1 mil. So no one knew back in November 2019 that we'd have a pandemic in the next fall or the next season in the spring. So that kind of threw everything for a loop, if you will. No surprises there. But conversely, we did get some COVID relief funding. Is that correct? So that kind of helped defray some of and provided a cushion. So long story short, the council is looking at maybe revisiting this issue for next 2023. More importantly, I think it's kind of cool that we have to look at the whole Bexley community, right? And our community continues to heal and recover physically, emotionally from the pandemic in terms of perspectives. And so I think the stress on the community or on the community at this point with another levy could be a little tough. So we're willing to kind of hold off. There was some conversation about bond levy versus facilities needs. So we're going to make sure we kind of keep those both in mind. Let's see here. Mr. Smith gave us a conversation on cash reserve balance. We didn't quite get that, but we will soon. Okay, so we had too much heated discussion or salty discussion about this other issue, the operating levy. So we said we couldn't quite get the cash reserve balance. And finally, it's a little little dessert, I guess you can say. So the district was able to help me to attend a School Finance 101 day-long workshop. I felt that I can finally talk to Kyle with some great substance about school funding and about the formula and about things that go into it. It was great to see the inputs that center around student needs. That was very enlightening for me as an educator as well, to understand more about the state share, local share, average district costs, and so forth, to see our budget on the website and learn more about school vouchers. All that was really nice. And then also I'm going to be signing up to be an alternate for the OSBA Audit Committee. They needed somebody. They sent an email out. I said, I'll do it. And then they said, hey, guess what? You don't want to respond it. So that's my report.
That's great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Question about the athletic board.
Hmm?
Can you go back to that one?
Yeah.
I'm curious about, in what ways, like when you think about.
Marguerite, turn your microphone on. That's okay.
I'm curious about in what ways are you thinking about how previously, like, students got in trouble and then they got pulled out of the sport, which was the thing that was taking up their discretionary time. And by pulling them out, we're just giving them more discretionary time to potentially make poor
Decision.
developmentally appropriate decisions.
Right.
So I'm wondering about how that is impacting the conversations that you're having. Like, how do you keep kids engaged and balance that with?
I think maybe Harley or Dr. Williams might speak to this a little bit later, but I think there's a couple of things. One is that if a student has a leadership role on a sport and they violate this policy, that leadership role is going to be compromised. I mean, they're not going to be.
You're still on the team, but they lose it.
That's right. They may not be, the captain, I guess you could say. The other side of this was that we did have a component with community service being involved. And so I think that was not quite going as well as it could have gone. But I think that with Marcellus coming on board and just kind of looking at what other districts are doing, the idea is how can we be more developmental with the students? How can we kind of, working in a progressive kind of way? So I think that's the goal. So we're trying to figure that all out. And Harley, Dr. Williams has some suggestions for next month.
So there's some intentionality in terms of embedding restorative practices.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And we saw some models that were provided by Marcellus too.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Marguerite, it's you. Do you have any reports tonight? Okay, perfect. Then it's over to Joanne.
Yes, so the Bexley Recreation Board met last week. The large portion of the discussion was focused on the department's new masking policy, not only for recreation programs, but for before and after school programs, and then also for their Jeffrey preschool program. And I know there's been communication about those new policies that have come out. We also discussed a lot about the summer programming. There'll be a new hard copy of the brochure sent out to homes. This is a little different during the pandemic. They did not send a hard copy, but they will be. And then registration is on April 25th for the summer programming. And that's all I have for today because the policy committee did not meet this month.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Joanne?
No, Ms. Powers, I did have one last thing that I needed to report. I forgot to report out and thank the district for including Victoria and I on our additional professional development that we engaged in Saturday, March 5th. OSBA is our organization that we partner with for boardsmanship and education. It helps us with our policies. And I know you guys attended the Board 101 training, which we all engage in when we first become board members. And so this opportunity Saturday was a deeper dive and for veteran board members who have had an opportunity to take that course. And now that you've completed the 101, I think they could take the 201 at any time. So the next time it's being offered, I encourage you to also participate in that. It's always good to be around other board colleagues from other school districts because you get an opportunity to kind of hear that, you're not on an island by yourself facing these issues, that many other school districts and school boards also have similar challenges and ways. And they really just gave us some really great lessons in that day-long seminar. The things that are always great are we are affirmed that we are moving in the right direction in our district, because a lot of the things that they recommend school boards do, we already have in place and have been doing for a long time. And that was really good. It made me feel really good that, having been on the board for a long time, that, how I can improve myself as a board member, supporting as new people come onto our board and get them ramped up. So it was a long day seminar, but it moved really good, and it was on Zoom and I didn't fall asleep this time. So I was back to normal.
Great. Thank you for adding that, Alicia. Dr. Fine.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of quick items that we'll zip through. Brad's going to help me with some of the slides, but it has been a busy February. As you see some of the events, some of those that were mentioned today, it's the best part of the job is going and watching our students do their thing, and our staff members guiding them, supporting them. But we have such talented students in and out of the classroom. And I'm just so thankful that we have the ability to provide these opportunities to support the whole child and watch them shine. So it's been a great month. We are full speed into the spring season, and we look forward to other events. As you know, March celebrations, as you can see, it's Irish American Heritage Month, Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, Deaf History Month, Women's History Month. Marcellus continues to work with our students and staff on finding ways to honor and celebrate this. What I love about Marcellus and our leadership team is having students take initiative and provide opportunities for our community. I want to acknowledge yesterday was International Women's History Month. I am incredibly thankful for the women in this room, the women that we get to work with on a daily basis. There are women in my life that I'm incredibly thankful for, grateful for. Two amazing, strong, bright young ladies at home, my wife as well. My mother, and I'm just thankful for the guidance and the wisdom. And Jill Abraham, I want to make sure that we acknowledge, you'll see in your board documents, hopefully you deny it, but her resignation is on the agenda tonight. I'm really happy for Jill. I'm sad for us. She has been named the new Assistant Superintendent of Hilliard. And we're really excited for the journey that's ahead for you. I am jealous of Hilliard. I know you will knock it out of the park. I am thankful for everything you've done, and you will be sorely missed, but I'm excited to see where the journey takes you. Just so that you know, the resignation would take effect at the end of March. I think it's March 31st. And then our first April 1st, we're looking at possibly bringing in an interim superintendent to start hopefully on April 1st. The interim deputy superintendent would provide us with additional supports for our students and our staff. But Jill Abraham, you are a really important part of our team and the success, and I'm thankful that I had at least 10 months with you. Athletic facilities update. We continue to hold discussions with our friends at the Jewish Community Center for the possibility of enhanced athletic facilities for our students. Both sides are doing their due diligence and preliminary work, which is important because of the unique relationship. I firmly believe we are positively moving forward with our conversations, but this is a process where we expect it to take a little time before official agreements come before the board. I know we've had probably 6 or 7 months of the similar updates. It is still moving forward very positively. We're excited for what's ahead, but we're still trying to come to agreement with what the terms will look like and how we will move forward. Kyle Smith has been a big part of that. We will, and Dr. Williams' team, and we'll continue to update the board as we learn more. I'll turn to just a quick update on our leadership team. I'm thankful for our leadership team. And like many schools across the nation, we are seeing an increase in behaviors that impact the experience of Bexley students and staff. As an administrative team, we continue to review our practices regarding all areas of prevention and responsiveness, including ensuring a community of care and respect, timely and thorough investigation of reported concerns, and communication with students, parents, and teachers. We also continue to engage in professional study on a routine basis. Over the last few weeks, our principals and leadership team have engaged in conversations and professional learning involving student behaviors and reported incidents, school response and investigation practices, and feedback from stakeholders. We continually seek to identify ways to prevent challenging behaviors, intervene most effectively, and support all stakeholders following a challenge. We have also participated in professional learning with district legal counsel to review policies and applications of these policies regarding investigations and our discipline. Our leaders are asking really important and thought-provoking questions, and we continue to improve. Our leaders, counselors, clinicians, and faculty continue to grow in their practices to ensure safe and respectful school communities. And I'm happy to just have a discussion or questions now or at the end.
Let's do some.
Yeah.
I'm curious, thank you, appreciate your service. And I'm wondering, based on your experience regarding how long it takes for somebody to understand a school district, a unique school district ecosystem, what might be the benefits of working with the central office staff that are currently in place to offer a runway about how central office might be structured, as opposed to bringing in someone who would have to learn the community, learn the district.
You talking long-term or you talking interim?
I'm talking.
Yeah. So my thinking around the interim is actually revolves around that. One, we have many things that are a gap in terms of things that need to get completed from now till the end of this summer. We feel strongly that the number one priority is support for our team, which is our central office staff, but most importantly, our building leaders, our instructional leaders, staff. And we feel that we want to bring someone in. I feel like I want to bring someone in that can, one, provide that support to that level. Two, I want to make sure that there are things that we can accomplish that have to get done because we're up against the clock on some things. And we feel we have the ability with our leadership team to identify what is it that this person can do and what is it that we can take as a leadership team and identify what this person can't do because they don't have time to learn, figure out, process. And within our team, we would have the ability to hopefully support and complete the tasks that are now open. The last piece is bringing in somebody that has incredible knowledge in the structure of these types of organizations. Obviously, learning what that looks like is an important piece, but having the ability to process exactly what it is, how we are functioning, what we look like, and having input through a process with myself, with our leadership team, our staff, a review of how we are currently situated, and having a conversation at the end of, I don't know, maybe that's April or May board meeting to say, here's how we're currently functioning, here's how I believe we can function better, and here's how we would move forward.
So the district has had a substantial increase in the central office in the last couple of years. So I think it would be super important to offer some information to the board and have some conversations prior to that ask, because it feels like coming today and this being the first that we're hearing about it is a challenge.
If I may, just quickly. So we've lived through 3 major administrative losses, if you will, in a very short period of time. And we witnessed, as the previous board witnessed, the weight and the stressors and the lack of capacity that happened when those positions were turned over, people moved on, whatever it was. And so the board at the time elected to not only, when we restructured and did a reorganization of our org chart, was how do we build capacity within the staff that we have, as well as, how do we get the things that we need to get done. And, often that's a criticism from the community that, our district is top heavy administratively, but if you really look at the ratio to the number of staff, number of students and administrative staff, we're really right on par. I disagree, and you certainly can disagree as well. But when we're looking at, when you make an assertion of, we've had substantial increase in administrative staff, you really got to look at the org chart and really disseminate, was this just a change in job description or title, but the administrator and their primary duties are still the same. So I would argue that, it's a good idea to have someone step in on an interim basis to take that back administrative stressor off while we figure out, is this a role that we still need to fill as it is now, or do we need to revisit the org chart again, and maybe go to a chief academic officer or stay with an assistant superintendent? I think one of the intentions of our last couple of years, and one of the learnings that we got out of the last couple of years, is having depth in the organization. And if you look at most successful organizations, they have built into their leadership the ability to have more people on staff, to be able to absorb changes. I don't think it's a bad idea to have an interim step in and support our team. My organization of 30,000 people right now is facing that very thing and not having the capacity. And then the result of the mental stressor and the professional stressors that it causes on the staff, because there's not enough people to do the work. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea.
So I think I want to acknowledge, an important piece of what you asked, which is communication. We will be in great communication. And I envision it being a conversation. I'm guessing when we come forward with whatever that piece is, 1, we'll all have lots of conversations individually, obviously. But 2, I guess I'm betting the question would be, here's my recommendation. I'm guessing the question would be, why? Why is this the recommendation? Why does this make the most sense for us? So I feel like utilizing that ability to bring in an experienced educator who has possibly done the work before brings us a fresh perspective to take a look at this, because I've heard that from day one. When I met with over 200 community members, staff members, I hear about the top heavy. Well, let's truly take a look and see. Now we have an opportunity. What does that look like when we come forward with what that role looks like moving forward?
So I'm curious, because I've asked for an org chart and a historical look at how the central office has evolved, and haven't yet received that.
You didn't receive that in your initial board?
A historical. I don't want just this. Right. So, and I guess I would ask that you would consider what might be the benefits of, hiring a consultant to help you think through that we could pay significantly less than hiring an interim. So I think there's lots of ways to look at it. And I'm concerned about the concerns that people have already voiced about central office. What are the historical look at the change in the org chart has been over the last 5-10 years? And what might be some additional options we could consider in lieu of hiring an interim.
And my plan was having the interim support that work so that we could have a conversation when we get to that space as to the recommendation and the why, including the historical context that you're talking about.
And there's options other than.
Sure.
hiring.
And
Mr. Smith, could you tell me, I thought we have that information sort of readily available at some of our previous board meetings that might be easy to pull. Can you refresh my memory? I don't know, would that have been during, it would have been some during Dr. Miller, but also with our interim superintendent, because we did that extensive work and analysis.
Yes, I've been working on that, and actually in my search and compiling it, I found a document that we did have. And it was just needed some updating. So I'm going to have a conversation with Dr. Fine tomorrow. And then you all should have that, I think, before the weekend.
so let me just ask, when we had an interim superintendent, we worked with the ESC. Are you working some with the ESC on this also?
That would be an option for us to work through the ESC, yes.
And in terms of, just as a point of, ease in terms of looking at the org chart, our current org chart is on our website on the front page of it. And when you go into the policies, it's actually our last org chart. So we got to update that, but it's kind of convenient because the two org charts are right there. So yeah, you can, because for just like you, Marguerite, I wanted to look and see where we'd come. And so I was able to pull those pretty readily. Do you have other questions right now on that? Anybody?
I have one. So when you say interim, is there a time frame on that interim appointment? How does that work?
Yeah.
Because obviously there was some time, I'm assuming, left on Dr. Abrams' contract.
Yeah, we're looking for, we haven't solidified anything. We hope to start something on April 1st. I don't know how long we would need that to go. My worry is wherever we land, we have to move pretty quickly. We want to get it right, but we want to move quickly to where we have the ability to, if there's a posting at the end of this, who that person is, getting a high quality person. I don't know how long that process would be, how soon the next position, if there's a position, what that position is, when that start date would be. You oftentimes look for a transition date to support, but I'm assuming if you have an interim, it would go through early summer, midsummer.
Okay, and I also think taking a look at the org chart would be a great exercise as you being a new superintendent. Org chart, as everybody knows, was done prior to your arrival here. So
Yeah.
That I do think that would be a good exercise.
Actually, Dr. Fine got to participate.
We were
in
part, yeah.
that. Yeah, it was one of the things that we required, was participating in restructuring that. But to your point, I think it's a great time to, now that you're not just taking recommendations from an interim
Right.
who's been here for 6
Correct.
months. You now are in the role and have had an opportunity to see how your team operates and what you need and
Right.
what you think they need. So I think that's a
Yeah.
great idea. Dr. Fine, will ESC support providing you with a list of candidates to consider?
Yep, ESC has been very helpful in terms of possibilities out there. There are not a ton of people
Sure.
looking to fill an interim role right now, but we've got some great possibilities.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So Joanne, just so you know, that request was initially for a 10-year historical org chart evolution. And I think, Kyle, what you're working on is a 5-year.
Yeah, what I was able to find was about a 5-year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
I just needed to update with this year, and we didn't have salaries as a point of data, another data point. So I've been working on collecting that historical information.
Okay, great, thank you.
One more comment. So, and then one of the urgent pieces about this interim being filled and so forth is that one of the key roles for the deputy superintendent is summer school, right? So.
Yeah, so I will say Jill has done an incredible job. Jill continues to work full speed and fight for us here in Bexley to put us in as positive a shape as possible to knock out some things, or at least put our people in position to have success. So we are working within our team to identify what it is that we need to do before Jill leaves in a week and a half, and then what we pick up from beyond. So summer school being a really important piece. As you know, we opened those gates up earlier this week and had incredible interest, and we're fine tuning that process as we go.
All right.
I did have a chance to look at the summer school options, and it just looks like a lot of great, fun, diverse projects, 60 different, that's really awesome. So I appreciate that. I also wanted to just say a word, since we're talking so much about Jill and her job here. I received an email yesterday from a community member thanking the district leadership for managing and navigating the district through the entire pandemic. And when I read that email, I did think of Jill. Jill worked to keep our students learning every step of the way through the pandemic. Super difficult, super uncharted waters, pivoted regularly, and did that to make sure that our students not only were learning, but were learning the best way that we could manage for them at the time. So I have a really great memory of moving to what we called then hybrid 2.0, and the work that Jill put into to making that a reality. Time, super time sensitive. I know she worked just completely tirelessly to do that. And she made those changes because she was listening to all of the stakeholders. And in particular, I remember a survey that she put out to students, and it was, the number of responses was incredible. And what she learned from that was how the students were learning best. And so she recommended that we shift, and we shifted to make sure that our students, with their one-to-one devices, but were able to learn in the way that worked best for them. And I was so proud of what our district was able to do at that time. And so the gratitude that comes from the community, I express to you. So thank you. And I'm excited for you in your new role.
Yes, thank you, Jill. I've just got two more things. Senior Takeover Day. Last Wednesday, Bexley High School students learned from Governor DeWine, Representative Kristen Boggs, and Judge Chris Brown, along with architects, designers, artists, writers, pilots, small business owners, entrepreneurs, doctors, EMTs, attorneys, scientists, members of the class of 2022, and much more. You see some of the photos from that day up on the screen. With help from many, on March 2nd, Steve Shapiro and several staff members hosted a large-scale day of self-determined learning at Bexley High School. Students were able to choose from 62 different learning sessions on the day that juniors were taking the ACT. More than 200 students signed up for well over 300 learning sessions, including career shadowing visits hosted by Bexley community members, senior takeover learning sessions hosted by those seniors, and visits to the educational programs, including Eastland Fairfield Cybersecurity, Bioscience, and Architecture Construction Management. Teachers and students completed surveys about the day, and we look forward to sharing that data in the coming weeks and months. But it was a very successful, student-driven day, and we were really proud of our team. And the last thing I want to touch on quickly before you get into the business of the agenda is just an update around our COVID protocols. We want to thank our community again for their efforts in assisting us with our transition to a mask optional environment over the past few days. We were very intentional about our decision to provide a 2-day runway to properly prepare our learning community. And I am appreciative of everyone's patience, which led to what I believe to be a positive transition. I am thankful for our building leaders who met with staff to review ways that this can impact our school's environment, our staff members for pressing pause to reestablish classroom norms and expectations, and our families for discussing strategies at home. Our number one priority remains that all students, staff members, and visitors continue to feel safe and supported as we continue to implement these changes. I am impressed with how our students, faculty, and staff have handled this newest change with the same patience, kindness, and compassion that they have shown throughout the entire pandemic. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fine. Any Other questions or comments to Dr. Fine on his report? Okay, so next we have our going down the agenda for B. So what we have done in the past is we've just said, here are all these pieces under the superintendent's action items. I'd like to take them individually so that if there's any discussion or questions about any of these, we can go through them individually and vote on them individually this evening because we've got different questions and comments on each of them. So starting with the personnel action items, item 4B, what I'm going to do first is ask for a motion and a second, and then if there's any discussion or questions, we'll take that one first. So 4B, approval of personnel action items administrative. May I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions about 4B?
I have a mere discussion point. No question. I have purposely tried to look away because I am the emotional one, I think. I would like to say to you, Ms. Abraham, that the Bexley community may not be fully aware of the loss that we are going to experience with your exit. I mourn that loss because I watched a soldier. I got to see you accept your appointment, and I'm glad to say that I'm here seeing you fly to your next journey. So you are an incredibly talented, empathetic, smart educator and a fierce advocate for your team and your staff. And I know that they probably feel it too. And I cannot thank you for the gift that you have given Bexley schools over the last few years. And I know it's not been a easy road. It's been rocky at times, but what an amazing amount of success you can hang your hat on. So I don't want to belabor it. I wish you tremendous success. I have no doubt that you will be successful. What an amazing chapter for you to go right. So yeah, Hilliard City Schools owes us a big one, but good luck to you and thank you. I count you as a really special memory for our time here with Bexley. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Anybody else have any questions or comments about 4B? If not, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of approval of 4B, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll go down to 4C, please. This is the certified staff changes. Can I have a motion to approve 4C?
This is where we can ask questions.
Yeah, well, let's, I'm going to do the motion.
So moved.
Then the questions
Second.
and then we'll,
Okay, thanks.
okay, so we've got motion and a second and now questions.
Okay, and this is, my understanding is that the district is doing, how we call them, like interviews.
Exit interviews.
Exit interviews. And so I guess the questions I have.
Is your mic on? I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I know that hasn't been going on super long, and so, but it will eventually gather
Yeah.
a, usable amount of data. So I'm interested in what you're learning, because there seems, as we're shifting, what are we learning from the exit interviews, how you're disaggregating that data for staff departures by department, by school, by demographics of the people who are staying or leaving. What are you learning from that process? How you're disaggregating that data? And then in particular, Jonathan and I met with a group of community members who shared some concerns about the high mobility in the special ed department. And so I'm just sort of curious about what you're noticing and how you're responding.
Sure. So I'm going to speak a little bit on behalf of, I think, Melissa Klossman Lando and Marcellus have done a really helpful job in bringing the exit interviews to life. I think, and just in talking with Melissa, I think she's been doing this for many years, but bringing it to her role as our employee relations has been really powerful. I can't speak to what we've learned, but I will tell you that she, as soon as she finds out and identifies that someone is exiting and leaving, she reaches out. She includes me on the email and says, first off, congrats, or whatever that moment is, and asks for time to sit down and have that exit interview and that conversation. And I believe the purpose that she has and Marcellus have been using is to identify areas of growth. So what are some of the areas that we need to work on? What is it that we can improve upon? But also focusing in on what are some of those moments of success. So what are we doing well as a district? What are we doing that we can do better? And where are gaps that we need to focus on so that we don't have people exiting? She takes this information, they take this information and are breaking it down. I do not have that information at this point. It's not been a ton of folks that we've had interviewed, but Melissa, if you want to speak to a couple.
Is it Melissa and Marcellus who do it together? Hi, everyone. I wasn't sure if myself.
You want to hit your, thanks.
Is it green?
There you go. Can you hear me now? Not the Verizon or other advertisement. Anyway, so sharing with you, I had to ask Marcellus if he had done exit interviews, because right now I have only been doing the exit interviews. And so that was a practice that I had previously done as a special education coordinator in another district. And it was really something that I wanted to have that person that was typically it was the retirements who had been there for decades share what were things you've seen over the years through change. Because a lot of the communities I'd worked in previously were smaller communities and just have expanded beyond. And just to meet the demands of what's going on in the trends. And so that's really where our questions started for me. And then when I got here, I realized we didn't do exit interviews, or I did not know of them historically. And so I thought, well, I really want to know. I want to know what people loved here. Why did they come back to work every day? What are things that they saw that excited them about Bexley City Schools? And then overall, what did they think we should continue to do, or what should we change? And so in looking at that, I've offered exit interviews, I believe, to almost everybody, if not everybody, since August. And we've only had a handful that have said, hey, I'd love to participate. I've asked a couple of times and said, hey, it would be something that you are no longer employed, so you certainly don't have to, but you can feel confident knowing that this information is something we want to glean some information from to inform our practices. And so it's been less than a handful that have shared they would like to participate and then have participated with me in an interview. And those are the questions that I ask. What successes did you find in Bexley City Schools? What things brought you back to work every day or got you excited? What things do you think that we should continue to do that made you feel good about your work? And then what are things that you would change, or you would suggest, hey, this might be something to reflect on and see, is this something that's effective or efficient, or we should continue to do? And so then when I have that information, what I do is bring it back to the leader or the leaders that it would involve. And then I also help use it to inform our practices that we have in the district, whether it be the processes that we have or things. And again, it's less than a handful of people. So that's been the hard part, because there just isn't a lot of data as of right now. And the majority of those less than a handful have been retirements. So they're very excited to go on to the next phase of their life. Most of them leaving education to retire, not going to another career.
You want to talk a little bit about the intervention specialist and how we prepare for openings?
Yeah, so share more a little bit about that, because I haven't been here when we've had them resign or retire. So I'm thinking, you're just thinking overall, your question is?
So let me go back to what you already offered and just clarify.
Sure.
So what you're saying is that you invite everybody, right?
It is resigning or retiring.
Right, to have an exit interview, but not everybody takes you up on it.
Correct.
So would it be possible for you to share, so we've had this many, you don't have to do it now, I'm not asking you to come up with that number at this second, but to share with us, and it can be in the week, like a week report or weekend.
The weekend board update?
that
Sure.
Just how many people, since you started the exit interview process, how many people have retired or resigned? And then how many people have offered to participate in the exit interviews? Because it would be interesting to see who is and who isn't, right? And then to
Yeah.
explore what might need to change in that process in order to get more people to participate. So
Yeah.
that's sort of.
Great question. Absolutely.
And then second, I guess the question was, and this might predate you, and it certainly predates you in this role, but may predate you in the district as well, is to look at some sort of longitudinal data around the mobility of special ed staff.
Mhm.
And then you may or may not have exit interviews for that, but for us to really be intentional, because consistency, right? When we think about special ed students or other students who are experiencing a lot of challenge, right? That sort of consistent, having a consistent relationship, having consistent staffing, having consistent trusted adults matters in that environment in particular. And so what are sort of the practices in place to reduce the mobility?
Yeah, I think honestly, that is an excellent question. And I think one that I've pondered and many other school districts have pondered for a long time. And I think we have some hypotheses why that is occurring. I myself am dual certified, like really triple certified in my teaching, which is general ed, and then 2 areas of special education as an intervention specialist. And then I was also a special education coordinator for 5 years in a previous district. And in looking at that, that is something that always came across the Board of Education docket, which is the significant turnover or changes, especially those of us that are dual certified. So if you're dual certified, you might be able to teach as an intervention specialist, and then you also have certification to teach in general education. And so there were years that I exactly did that. I did 3 years in special ed, then we'll go 2 or 3 years in general ed, and then back to special ed. And so I think that is something that's one of the many dual licenses we see out there. So for instance, this week we completed pre-interviews with Capital students. So Capital offers an opportunity for school districts to interview or pre-interview, mock interview their candidates that are coming out of their education program, their counseling program, and their psychology programs. And with that, when you see an intervention specialist, you see that they're dual certified. And so I do think that's a piece of it. But I think that's an excellent question, and it's not one that you alone seek the answer to.
Right. So I think we could ask, those would be some of the questions we're asking, right? Is
Yeah,
where are
absolutely.
you going and what, because then we would know for sure whether dual certification
Yeah.
was a piece of that.
That's a great question. The only
So-
person that I know that has been a part of the exit interviews that would have any part in special education was a retirement. And so that's all that I have right now. But yeah,
Right. So just going forward and
great
maybe
question.
looking back to see. So you're doing the exit interviews. Is that something, because maybe I misunderstood, that you and Marcellus are doing together?
no, I just do them, although we do work closely together with a lot of things. But not at exit interviews
Okay.
per se.
So I have a question. So
Sure.
are the exit interviews occurring while they're still employed with Bexley, or they're already?
Nope. It's a volunteer. Yep.
That's why.
Voluntary, yep, that they would say, hey, yes, I'd love to. And then it's been anything from some people, when they turn in their keys or their computer the day or two after, that's the time they wanted to meet in person. So we did that. Other people wanted to Zoom. We could certainly do that too. So I will do one with Jill if she's open to that, as well as other positions too.
So I'm wondering, I'm going to get back to the special ed piece in particular, is
Yeah.
thinking about what, and this is not a question for you to answer right now, but maybe a question for you to ponder and bring back and think about, is what role, how might the board support you in creating an environment where in Bexley, special ed teachers want to stay, that this is a place where they want to be?
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
might need to change, or how might we support you in creating that sort of culture environment?
Sure. And I think that's definitely something Marcellus and I do talk about, is retention of candidates and recruitment too, but the retention piece and what does that look like? And that can be very different from person to person or even role to role. That's something to look at.
So I know you guys just did a culture survey. So is that retention piece, or what would keep people here? Or is that part of that conversation, or some of that data will come out in that? Is that something you're going to
Yeah,
have to
so
follow up on?
That's a great question. So there's 2 parts. One, the administrative team and myself took on in the fall an opportunity to ask staff, why are they successful, or how can they be more successful in Bexley City schools? And that is working with administration or their colleagues or their building staff. And so we were able to glean from that lots of perspectives, but some overall themes, which included, one, purposeful and intention with time, which we all know because we're all so busy, clear communication, transparency, It had many other things on there. One was a social connection, because through the pandemic, we don't connect anymore, or I shouldn't say anymore, but it's not like we used to. And so they're really looking for that social connection among their schools and among their teams and across the district. So the things that came out through that. But then what Marcellus has done with the climate committee is he is currently doing a survey to staff. And that's kind of through the initiatives of what the people on the committee have wanted and have shared, and then through what our staff have asked for. So he can speak more to that. Mine was more in the fall.
All right, so Marcellus, is that something you're gonna present on next time, the culture survey?
Would you like me to?
I would love, is that all right? Thank you.
Do you have any more questions for me?
I really just have some quick feedback.
Sure.
As a parent of special education students in particular, and I saw the success of special education with one and one that struggled a little bit more. The one that was most successful was because there was consistency with his intervention staff from 2nd grade through 7th grade. In fact, she followed with his group or cohort to the middle school. And as a result, he was able to transition from the needs that he had as a young elementary student to a middle school student. And now he's about to go to high school and not needing the same level of supports because he's had that same consistent involvement and engagement with that same support person. And he had an incredible relationship with her, an absolutely incredible relationship with her. She understood him, how he learned, and really communicated that to his teachers. And I think it really was a beneficial experience. Middle school was a wonderful experience for him. So I do think, I know nationally it's a problem. It's not a Bexley thing to have high turnover because you have a high rate of burnout. And so to Dr. Jade's point, if we can find that secret sauce in our little district that makes that folks want to stay, because we don't have a tremendous rate of turnover in terms of staff, but that area does tend to see changes, but that's a national problem. If we can find a way to fix it or make it better, that'd be great, because I can speak to the success of having that level of consistency. And that's not to say that my other child wasn't tremendously or wasn't successful. I just saw the difference from when she came into the district and then the intentional efforts that Bexley has made over the last 5 to 7 years to improve it. And so it had a huge impact on the younger sibling.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you hit some, go ahead.
I was just going to say, thank you for putting on dual hats tonight.
Oh, you're
because
welcome.
you're not our,
Special
but I
ed is one
love
of
the
my
experience.
passions,
That's
and
right.
I love working with Sam and Kathy Rodeheffer and our ISs and our principals too, because they stand in as district reps. But I think you hit the nail on the head. One, we saw a larger turnover, I believe, last year because everybody did globally, just after the pandemic, just people, they reorganized their lives. And some people, and that's a lot what we're hearing in these pre-interviews of, oh, I decided during the pandemic to change my career. And so we're seeing a lot of people come through that they're older, more experienced, and they do have other careers under their belt. The other piece of that too is I totally get, so you may not know, and I'm not sure my family will want it public, but I do have 2 children and both have, one has a 504 and one has an IEP. I always thought I probably would not have children with those because that was my area of expertise, but I did. And so I understand that too, as a parent. There are years where I just want to hold on to that IS or that intervention person for forever. And I write to the principal and Trent Bowers and superintendent in Worthington, say, please keep them, but it doesn't always happen that way. But yeah, I understand that too.
And I would say, I think one of the strengths of our people is that we want to do everything we possibly can to support the child and support the parent. That comes at a cost. And that's where and I'm not saying we're the only ones that do that.
No.
The profession, the hours of work that comes outside of the moment of magic with the child in the classroom during a school day, it's really intense. So I think people are reevaluating is the time I'm giving to this worth the other things that could be coming as a result. So I'm really thankful for our people, but we know with all of our staff that they work really hard to be great, and sometimes it comes at a cost.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Is it possible for ourselves to talk about the
Yeah.
retention?
About the,
Retention?
yeah,
Is word-
if you're-
Or the culture survey, either of those
the-
things?
With me right now.
The top.
it doesn't bend. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I also think it's a really great opportunity to talk about some of the work that Sam McMaster's is doing. And the reason why I can speak about that is because we had a meeting yesterday about it, talking about what we're doing with special education in particular. So one thing that she is initiating is a special education task force. And what we're aiming to do is think about how we can support in a variety of different ways. On the macro level, on the micro level. The micro level is what do we need to do right now? What barriers exist right now? Also, what do we need to think about policy and procedure? And also thinking about it in 3 different ways. We thought about how can we make sure we're supporting students? How are we making sure that we can support parents and the parent and student relationship? But also within that piece captures your part where we want to do some qualitative work talking about the retention piece, about being able to say, what is happening in your work? What do you need help with? Based on what we have obtained from the special education piece, how can we then, knowing what we know parents want, how can we support you in doing that work? And so I think that's going to really be helpful in the coming months about what we're thinking about with that retention piece in particular. So, yeah, go
I don't
ahead.
know if there's a question from you or from you. What were the criteria used to determine who was going to serve on that special ed task force?
So that one
Yeah,
too, if you
go
want.
for it.
I was going to say, the reason why there's not a criteria is because it hasn't been initiated yet. So so for this task force in particular has been reaching out to everyone in the district, every parent in the district who is identified within the special education realm.
So they've already selected the task force? Or
It has not been selected.
Yeah, they had their first meeting last week. I attended. I know that some of the feedback has been, oh, I wish I would have been part of that process. So it's been opened up, I think, in the last, families received an email, I think yesterday, providing new opportunities for people to get involved within the task force.
So they did circulate an opportunity for people to sign up.
Yep,
It
to
probably
show
got
and-
lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
So it's good that if we're extending it again for anybody who might have, because I know that the mountain of emails.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I saw it, maybe I didn't. So that's good if you guys are doing that.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about. Although there's been an initial meeting, there are also going to be various opportunities
Correct.
depending on
Oh,
the
sure.
topic, depending on the topic.
Sure.
Right.
Because one thing we talked about is exactly what the demographic piece is, because we're saying we can't just say, hey, all special education. What we want to do is really narrow it down to like, what are we talking about and what areas are we talking about there? So that's why I believe over 40 people have requested to be a
All
part
right.
of this discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
I feel like
We'll be able to have a real diverse group of subcommittee work too.
Right.
That'll come out of that. That's good.
And so I think there are ongoing conversations with Sam and myself about what exactly that looks like, because the first thing we said is, what is the outcome? What are we actually trying to come, like, what is the whole point of bringing people together? And I think that's where we're trying to make sure, like, are those outcomes really matching that? Because there's one thing to just get a group of people together, but we want to go in and say, okay, so what are we actually trying to accomplish by getting people together? And so they've had initial meetings to really just talk about what that looks like, but there are also going to be various meetings with those specific outcomes in mind.
Will the gifted task force be included in I know they just did a mountain of work for that work, but it was a really great group. So I don't know if they'll also participate in the special education task force or be rolled into the work that they did with the gifted work.
I think Colleen
Colleen.
Boyle will be able to speak more about that
Dr.
at
Boyle.
the next meeting.
Yep.
As far as I'm sorry, you have an additional question about that?
I think my only other question might be, is the task force, is it something of an audit of the special ed? I mean, what is, I think, what's the problem you're solving for with the task force? Is that?
And so I think my maybe recommendation would be, because those conversations are happening right now, to maybe next month or the month after be able to present what those outcomes look like to the board.
I think that's great. I think that we're getting a little far from the issue that's on the agenda. I think it's a helpful discussion, but I think to your point, giving people an opportunity to come back with, answers to these
Updates.
questions, updates.
Yeah.
Do you have more?
No, I mean, if Marcellus, if you want to sort of offer an overview of the survey, or if you just
Yeah,
want to wait.
sure.
It's up to you.
I'll say that within
No,
60
fine.
seconds. There you go. So what we talked about demographics in particular, about what it looks like to support, because we know Melissa's doing a lot of work with exit interviews, and we said, well, we don't want to just find out what people are thinking when they're leaving. We want to figure out how we can support them. So to each school, we sent out a climate committee survey. And so it is anonymous, so we're not collecting the demographics based on race, gender, et cetera, but we are collecting based on each school. So we took the 5 schools based on where you work. And so the questions we asked are, what does it mean to have a good school climate? We also use some scales. So, okay, what does it mean to have a good climate? Ask them where they feel like they are. And also, what does it mean to be supported by administration? So that includes building principals and central office. And once again, ask the scale, how supported do they feel at this moment by central office and by their building administrator, whether that's principal, assistant principal, et cetera. And then also we asked them what meaningful professional development looks like for them. So they were able to provide clear-cut examples of what they want to see, which is going to help them along the way. And also what formal and informal pressures were brought up, because I know the board brought up in the last 2 months. We want to make sure that we're looking at staff and looking at what formal and informal pressures they are facing so that we can all assist. And also we looked at the collaboration as well to make sure that we're not operating in silos. So we asked them how would we like to see collaboration between administration and staff, and also the communication piece, what kind of communication we'd like to see. So it's a combination of the qualitative and quantitative that we're putting together to be able to put together a report that should be done in April.
And that closed Monday.
That's inform your retention.
Yeah, and there's
Correct.
more that I can speak about later on.
Closed Monday,
Huh?
the
Yeah,
survey.
it-
Yeah.
It closed on Monday. So we had about 120 responses. So we had a very strong response. We're also using that to inform our March Climate Committee, which they're going to do some work within the school where they get to have some peer-to-peer interaction. And so that's going to be purely qualitative that they're going to do as well. So I'll be able to share both of those.
Thanks for coming up on the
Thank you very
spot.
much.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's about retention. So when you talk about retention too, that's something that came up in the first survey in the fall. We talked about what wellness looks like and mental health and well-being. And so Kyle and I worked together to put together a wellness team of any district staff members that wanted to be on it. And then we were able to go through and do a wellness audit. And so come up with ways, was it financial wellness they wanted support in, social wellness, emotional, was it physical wellness? What did that look like? And so that led us, the first thing that staff said is social wellness. And so that's why we put together the healthy participatory dining experiences for staff, where we were able to have them come and they could make food and share. We had 97 people participate in the first fall survey. And then we had almost 100 participate in the healthy participatory dining experience. So we have about 340 staff, so about a third. So just wanted to give you that because retention is, it's all over. It's in a lot of what we do each and every day and how we treat our staff and interact with them. So.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you. Okay, I think we are at a point to vote, and I've lost my screen here, but I think we're on 4B, 4C. So we had a motion and a second. So all in favor of approval of 4C, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed to that? Thank you. That motion carries. So next is the classified staff changes. Can I have a motion to approve classified that 4D?
So move.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, 4D, are there questions about the classified staff changes? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of item 4D, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. And now we are down to approval of supplemental contracts, athletic contracts, and volunteers and theater stipends. Can I have a motion to approve 4E?
So move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or issues with respect to 4E? Okay, I'll call the question for a vote. All in favor of approval of 4E, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We are now down to 4F. Approval of extended field trips. Is there a motion to approve 4F, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions about these 3 field trips?
Good to see we're going on field trips.
We've been going on field trips. We've been out of state on field trips.
I see that. I see that. Keep it up.
Okay, all in favor. So we'll take a vote on 4F. All in favor of approval of 4F, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. And now we're down to 4G, which is approval of a volunteer for lunches. Can I have a motion to approve 4G, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion or questions about 4G?
I do have some questions. I think thinking about I think about both playgrounds, cafeteria, hallways, those open spaces what invite some of the challenging behavior that you guys are experiencing, that the district is, that we're all experiencing, the district's experiencing. I'm wondering what systems and structures are in place to invite volunteers into the building,
Sure.
right? And then, what's the vetting process, and how might we, thinking about spring and kids being outside and, maybe having more recess because we need it.
Right.
As a mitigator to some of the challenges that we're facing. How do we do that?
Yeah.
What does that look like, or what's going on?
I love that you asked that because Harley thought he was going to get out of a board meeting without speaking at the podium. Harley and I just talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. Harley, do you mind talking to us a little bit about our volunteer process?
We didn't want you to feel left out. We didn't want you to feel left out.
Glad to be back. It's a long week. All right, questions in general? I can tell you where we are with this and how we got here with this document. In a former role where I kind of saw HR stuff, we had an issue with a parent who was putting on Facebook things that she saw in the building related to a special needs student, and it was easily identifiable. And then when you look at the problem, we have no guidance, no guidelines to kind of corral all this. So I worked with the district attorney and others, find what I could find. I put together a little handbook that we gave to our volunteers, and we decided we would have 2 levels of volunteers. You'd have a certain level of level 1 would be a volunteer that has unsupervised access to students, or a sustained access for, potentially worrying about grooming possibly, or having availability to students that another staff member is not around. We call them level 1, and then we made them go through background checks, things like that. And the level 2 would be, I'm going on a field trip and I'm going to be in the presence of the teacher wherever I am, and like in a lunch hall or a lunch recess, there's always going to be a teacher out there as well. We don't expect them to go through background checks and pay for that. They just would get an approval by the principal, because these are all requests. I know we have a lot of parents who want to be involved, but it's still a decision made by the principal about what my needs are and how we can help. And we try to encourage main parents to get involved, but it's ultimately a principal's decision about the number of volunteers they want to have in a building and how that operates. And so how that basically operates is in the past is that you would put something out in your newsletter looking for help, and parents would then request, hey, I'm willing to help. They get this document now. There's information that they have to go through and sign off on confidentiality agreements. They sign off on whether or not there's an application in here, a link for them as well. And then they sign off that they're aware of everything in this document. And then the principal then, if it's a level 2, takes that information and then I think brings it to the board as an approval, but now without background checks. And then they keep that information in their office. And then a level 1 would go to you as well, but they would come with background checks and things like that as well.
I think this is because you're in this transition phase, right? We're like really not having anybody in the schools.
Yeah.
Just leave
To
it
really
alone.
not, I know, right? To really not having people in the school, to now potentially inviting more people in, particularly in spring. And then you've got
parents who are, kind of chomping at the bit, right, to come and help, which can be overwhelming,
Well,
right? So I guess I'm wondering it's kind of like the 2-day runway to the optional mass. Like, so knowing that you're going to want to have people that want to volunteer and that there's some upsides really just for having more adults and playgrounds, cafeterias and space like that. I'm just wondering sort of what you're thinking about or how you're planning for that, or what are some,
how am I planning for it?
not you
now?
personally,
The
us, how are
district?
we planning for it? The district planning for it, principals, or what thoughts have been given to
I think it
that?
would probably go through the principals, building principals, of what their needs are, what they're looking for. I mean, I had a couple months ago when Dr. Fine mentioned about how it was all hands on deck. And John and I were serving in the cafeteria and things like that. Well, we get a couple parents, former parents, and the Helgesons and the Rex who volunteer after they're seeing that. Hey, would you like to have help in the cafeteria? Absolutely, we'd like to have that help. So I think any word of mouth, any advertisements out of the principal's newsletters asking for, we could use help for lunch recess, we could use help for hall monitoring, whatever their needs are, should be probably communicated to their newsletters. And then this document could be sent to anybody who expresses interest.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, you
Sorry.
do.
I would also say I love that we were trying to get back to a sense of normalcy, visitors, guests. I want to make sure that we also protect maybe some of our staff members who aren't ready just yet to get into that. And we want to be able to, we support that. I think at the building level, teachers would be having conversations with their leadership, their principals, because I'm sure teachers or parents, just like we heard, I haven't been in the building for a while. I want to be there to help. I hope that we give grace to those who are ready and those who may not be ready just yet. But I want our staff to know we support it. We're here to offer our support as a central office team. But we love that there's field trips and have been field trips. We love that there's opportunities for people to get involved. And we love that people have stepped up and said, hey, I can help you in the cafeteria. I know you're doing it. How do I get involved?
Volunteers request, they're requesting, how can I help? We could have 500 people want to volunteer and we might not have that need, so you got to kind of weigh that out. It's an individual decision principals make with the people who want to be who have the time and expertise and willingness to help us out.
And can I just follow up with a question, I guess? We normally approve a long list of volunteers
Yes.
probably in August or so.
That's when I think you get your biggest list that comes in at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and so just for the knowledge of board members who wouldn't have been on the board at the time that we do that, we have a long list of volunteers currently.
Pages.
So when we get one that's just one, that's really unusual because we get a lot in the fall that we approve and they're available to us
Yeah,
throughout
for the
the
new
year.
board too, you'll get either myself or Ms. Clausen Orlando will be sending this to you, this document for approval every year as well, usually in the summer.
And I will say the volunteer handbook allowed for a lot of clarity around what the role of the volunteer is, how they interact with the district, where do they go when they have questions, and what's the expectations when they're
You read my handbook. That's
did.
great. I appreciate that.
I do.
Yeah.
But it's really, really, it's probably was a wonderful addition to have. And I'm glad that we have it because then it really erases some of the gray and makes it pretty clear on what their expectations are and of the district, because once they're in that spot, volunteer or not, they're a representative of Bexley City Schools. So thank you.
Absolutely. Good to go.
Thank you so much.
Can we increase the heat?
Okay, if there are no further questions about 4G, I'd like to call the vote on 4G. So would everybody who is in favor of approving 4G signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, thank you. We'd next go to Kyle.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Jill for the last 3 years. I've been in this school business for, even though I may look young, but I've worked with a handful or just more individuals in that position. And what this role does, nobody really sees. You'd be surprised at the grant compliance that mostly she does, and no one knows it. ODE knows it, they expect it. And you can get in a lot of hot water without these compliance checks. And I've never worked with someone so more efficient in that area. And this is just a small area, but I wanted to recognize and thank you, Jill, for that work. You've made my job easier. But most importantly, thank you for the friendship. We've all been in trench warfare for the last 2 years. But thank you. You'll be missed. So thank you. And for my reports tonight, I'll just offer up, do you have any questions? I don't want to speak unless you really have questions. I'm happy to answer anything about Finance Advisory, House Bill 126. I think both were reported on well and accurately. So I don't know that I have much more to add.
I was glad to hear that FY23, because for a while, when we first went to levy, that was kind of the target date, like that's the go date. And it sounded like the group were still feeling the same way, and that hadn't changed for the next time that we have to go out to levy. So that was good. That means that we had some pretty solid stewardship in a rocky time, that we haven't spent more than we needed to, and have a little bit of a breather. So, and I think our community will appreciate it too. We just don't want to do 9 years again, never again.
Yeah, no, I don't think that'll be the case. And we will have another advisory meeting in the near future to solidify that decision permanently and come out with some communication of why we believe we're not going to be on the ballot this fall. Because we owe it to our community to say why we're not coming back,
Right.
or what's led us to that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's
And we have other important conversations to be had. Cash balance reserve, which also is aligned with that decision, but also facilities. That's come up the last couple of meetings, and we had conversations about that today internally of how that's going to proceed within this committee first.
That's great. You are offering to answer questions about all of section 5 of the agenda, is that right? Questions
Yes.
about B, C, D.
Yeah, any questions on any of those?
Okay, so we can take those as a group. Can I have a motion to approve sections, the pieces 5B, 5C, and 5D?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Since there are no questions or discussion, all those in favor of approval of 5B, C, and D, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Kyle, did we have anybody sign up for public comment?
No, we
tonight?
didn't.
Okay, great. Thank you. We do not have an executive session tonight, so unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. And a
Second.
second. Thank you. So we can,
Very much to you now. That's what we just want to do. We just do that. He does sound like very much.
that's nice. I like that. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Thanks, everyone.